Welcome again to the 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. Today, we will be learning about the Philippine literary history from pre-colonial to the contemporary period. Philippine literature is part of the literature of the world. It started in its crude and slowly underwent refinement that resulted to discoveries, innovation, and creativity. In this lesson, we will be learning the Philippine literary history that is characterized based on its geographic dimension, linguistic dimension, and ethnic dimension. Geographic dimension is the relationship and connection of events and people to the natural and cultural environments. Linguistic dimension focuses on how we communicate and make meaning, styles of writing, and languages. Ethnic dimension deals with the characteristics of the culture and tradition relative to the literary forms. Now, let's start with the first historical period, the pre-colonial period from the unknown year before Christ to 1564. Geographic dimension. Literature in this period reflects the daily life activities of people such as housework, farming, fishing, and hunting. Indigenous people from different places of the country also contribute to the literature of this time. Linguistic dimension. Literary pieces were only transmitted through the words of the mouth and is skillfully expressed in a recited poem or in a poetical language mainly designed for recital. Baybayin was the earliest form of handwriting. Ethnic dimension. Folk narratives or kwentong bayan, folk speeches or karunungang bayan, and folk songs or awiting bayan shows the culture and tradition of the people. It shows the common people's longings, lifestyles, insights, and life lessons. In this period, the events in the life of our ancestors were connected with religious practices, rituals, and ceremonies, either chanted or sung. Thus, the literature revolves with the beginnings of the world, life, and community. Spanish period, 1565 to 1872. In this century, expeditions to the Philippines were sent by Spain. Geographic dimension. Spaniards brought Christianity and made a great impact on faith, education, and government. Linguistic dimension. The language is Spanish and Tagalog. They also introduced Spanish as the medium of instruction. Balagtas tradition, in a form of rhetorical, verbose, and figurative, are the known writing styles in this period. Ethnic dimension. Literature are generally categorized either as religious or secular or non-religious, due to the influence of Spaniards. The examples for religious literature are Sináculo, Pasión, and Comedia. Metrical romances such as Awit and Corrido are the examples of non-religious literature. Doctrina Cristiana, a prayer book written by Padre Juan de Plasencia, was the first printed book in the Philippines. In this period, authorities in the church embraced the policy of the church doctrines. Therefore, the literary scene during this era was focused on religious themes due to the Christianization of the country. The Revolutionary period, 1872 to 1898. Geographic dimension. After 300 years of passivity under Spanish rules, literature in this period sought reforms and changes in the government and in the church. The once religious spirit transformed itself to nationalism. This fades away to independence. Linguistic dimension. The language shifted from Spanish to Tagalog. Writings were exemplified by patriotism of the Filipinos, strong desire to achieve freedom against oppressive power, and the writing is in theory rhetorical. Ethnic dimension. Political essays and political novels are the examples of the propaganda literature that were written to criticize, inflame the spirit of revolution, directly denounce the existing society, and expose the evils of Spanish rule. Propaganda movement was established and led by Rizal, who aimed to have an equal rights for the Filipinos and Spaniards. No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo were the novels written by Jose Rizal that exposed the corruption and the oppression in the church and government. In this period, Filipinos began to write novels and poems with a common theme like the love for the country. This marked a substantial period of burning emotions on the account of achieving freedom against oppressive power. American period, 1898 to 1941. Geographic dimension. Pre-public education was introduced. Thus, new knowledge and information were made accessible to a greater number of Filipinos. Magazine, newspaper, and publications have flourished. Linguistic dimension. Tagalog was chosen as the basis of the national language of the Philippines. Firm establishment of English as the medium of instruction in all schools. Writing is in free verse, and the writers mimic the styles of the American models. Ethnic dimension. Literary works were highly influenced by Western literary trends like Romanticism and Realism. Prolific Filipino writers went into all forms of writing like news, reporting, poetry, stories, plays, essays, and novels. In this period, Filipino writers who availed a tertiary education were able to improve their social status and joined educated masses. Writers had acquired the mastery of English language and became innovative in writings and competently wrote on a lot of subjects. Japanese period 1941 to 1945. Japanese occupied Manila and set up a council of state in the country. Geographic dimension. This period is considered as the flowering years of Tagalog short story. Newspapers in English were stopped by Japanese. Linguistic dimension. The language used in writing is mostly Tagalog, since Japanese strictly prohibited the use of English. Writing is in simple language and free verse. Ethnic dimension. The common topics of this period portray Filipino life and culture. Haiku, the Naga, and Filipino drama have flourished during the Japanese occupation. In this period, Filipino literature was given a break. Many English writers turned to writing in Filipino. The common themes of the most poems were about nationalism, life in the barrios, faith, religion, and arts. Late 20th century, the martial law. The beginning of activism resulted in the declaration of martial law in 1972. Geographic dimension. This period is considered as the period of bloody placards. Publications and mass media outfits were shut down. Linguistic dimension. The language used is generally in Filipino and English, but others are written in their local dialects. This period has been marked with rebellion and protest, writers who wrote openly with their criticism against the government. Ethnic dimension. Many young people became activists to ask for changes in the government. Literature is characterized as rebellious. Literature such as protest and reason were produced against the martial law administration. In this period, many writers faced the difficulty of ill treatment and injustice. Many writers used pen name and were imprisoned. Nevertheless, themes of this period portrayed the native culture, customs, and the beauties of nature. The 21st century literature. Geographic dimension. Digital technology has really taken off, and access to abundance of information offered through workshops in the country and abroad. There is also a growing production of literature available online. Linguistic dimension. With the appearance of the modern publications and ebooks, the flowering of the literature in various languages continue to flourish. Writings evoke introspection and humor. The writers also explore different themes and styles. Ethnic dimension. Modern avenues of writing during this period have flourished, such as graphic novels, one-shot stories, documentaries, and blogs. There are a wide range of changes in literature brought by technological advancements of the 21st century. This leads the writers to write about the future and evoke self-reflection. Indeed, we truly believe and we are proud to say that our country has a rich history that expresses the national traditions, customs, and cultural values that has been developed throughout the centuries. contemporary online resources. Thank you for listening and participating in our class.
Happy learning at home with lessons made easy by Olivarian GoTeach. One proud Olivarian.